Is that something that he could fly down to Dallas and meet with him and talk about moving the club to 155?
Yeah, that I would, the only way really got to reach out to his agent. That's the only way. Anybody that, is new to the clan, it's got to go through his agent.
Okay.
Every time, and Ryan and I have been working together now for a couple of years, and every time we do something, he surprises me. I can't believe you asked that.
No, that's good.
You could have done that. I don't mind. It's fun.
No,
right?
well, yeah, at least it's, the reality is being that it's not anybody that wants to talk about golf. If it's talking about long drive, he probably would anybody.
Really?
So that's the thing. Like, he's just like, that's it. I'm all in. Like,
Right.
he's trying to get as fast as possible. And his coach is Carbone. And
Right.
Carbone's first thing was, well, I think you should go talk to Como. And I was like, no, go talk to the guys that are moving it that fast.
Right.
All right, so Coach, we're going to start here in 1 minute, and I'm later on at the end. We're going to bring up some traces, and if you don't mind, Mike, we're going to get you and Ryan to break them down. Is that pretty cool?
Yeah, no problem. I was gonna, if I can do something here.
Cool. You are a true capitalist, Ryan, and I love you for it. I mean, you definitely take advantage of the breaks. Hello, Jeff. It's been an amazing week, Mike. We're doing lots of new things, and Ryan is just the absolute best at this, and I just love it. I can't. It makes me laugh inside, like with pride. You're my son, Ryan.
That's good.
Y'all propped up there, Michael?
Yeah, I was gonna have some fun.
So Terry, can you mute everybody but the three of us right now?
No, I can go to settings, but if I do that right now, I'm going to be.
No, I can do it as they pop up.
Well, I tried to do something.
That's all right. Leave it on. You're good. Take your time, Coach. Jeff, are you in Florida? Shake your head up and down. Yeah. You going to see McLean? Yes. Okay. All right, we're going to start Coach Michael Schy, and we have Ryan Groves, the general manager of BuyTrack, with us tonight. Hello, everybody, on a happy Friday evening here in wherever you are. Coach, Madeira, California. Tell us, how did you end up there?
I've been here my whole life. So
Your whole life.
Yeah, this is Fresno, Clovis area, Madeira. So my whole life.
And the look, I'm going to get right into it because we burned a few minutes trying to figure out how to use this Zoom meeting. And immediately after this meeting, I'm going to upgrade us to webinars. I didn't realize we had this program. Mike, I want to go right into it because the title of the event is The Modern Golfer Applied Golf Technologies. I want to ask you, how does the modern golfer different, in your opinion, from the golfer of the 80s?
Well, I would say the first thing is fitting. So, in the 80s, you didn't get club fit. Whatever you bought a set of 8 irons. And so I think the average set of clubs was made for somebody who was 5'8", 5'7".
Mhm.
And so if you were 6 foot tall, their clubs were, you had a different swing because clubs weren't made for you. So it's like, you know, if you didn't fit into the box, you had to learn to, you know, whether the shot maker or whatever, you know, you were playing with a small pair of shoes and you walked funny, and that was it. That's what you had to do, you know? And so if you typically look at guys that were probably either on the shorter side or on the super tall side, golf swings were, well, first of all, you didn't see a lot of them, number one. And so mainly because, again, clubs were not fit. You just went into the store, you bought 8 irons, and you said, okay, I'm just like everybody else.
It's rather, you caught me off guard with that response because I wasn't expecting it. So does the modern golfer today do anything technically different in their swing than they did so in the 80s?
Well, yeah, I mean, again, it's, I've always said this, that, you know, in club fitting and having a set of clubs that are fit, right? It's like a pair of shoes. Do you walk in and try on, or just buy a pair of shoes, or do you try a pair on to make sure they fit you right? Because if you don't, you're going to walk funny and it's going to hurt, right? So again, from a teaching perspective or learning a swing dynamically, you had to adjust to equipment. Now you don't have to.
Right.
Right. And so now that you don't have to, you're on an equal playing field. So obviously being bigger, taller, stronger now, there's an advantage. Certainly an advantage in today's world. If you're bigger and a bit stronger, obviously, and you can hit it farther and straighter, there's an advantage at this point. You know, back then it wasn't that way. It was either, you know, if you were a shorter guy, you didn't hit it far. If you were a bigger, taller guy, you hit it a long ways, but your equipment was off a little bit. So you tended to hit it offline quite a bit, you know? So from my perspective, the learning was different.
That's unbelievable.
And so in today's world, equal playing field, if you're playing with a, you know, with a fit set of golf club, now it can be more athletic. That's why I think you see girls today, women and girls. I mean, I love watching, you know, the women that swing golf clubs now, man, it's awesome. And, you know, nothing against how Julie Inkster or, can't even think some of the women way back when, you know, there were so few women that you would actually go, yeah, I want to watch that swing. Most of them you go, nah, I don't want to watch that. Whereas today, look how women swing golf clubs, right?
Terry and I were just at the PXG event for the WAPT Tour, which is one step below Symetra. And Terry, I think we tested 40 women that day, and we had at least 4 of them that carried the ball over 290 and 2 of them that carried it over 300.
Sure.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
The funniest thing though, Mike, is that wow, they were just all fitted wrong, according to the way I think. Anyways, they were using men's shaft that for equivalent club head speeds, but they weren't loading the shaft in nearly the same manner. I thought, anyways, it's just my opinion, but based on some science, they just weren't. You know, they have a completely different way of loading up to create.
Sure.
Now, on that note, what's the biggest difference between two equal, a man and a woman with equal club head speeds? In my opinion, and it's a question, not a statement, they seem to swing or load it up different. Is it? I mean, their physicality is slightly different. Any thoughts there, or am I just off base?
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, I've been teaching now for 40 something years, and so you know, growing as a teacher, it was easy to put people. We had the systems, right, or boxes, and everybody, you try to teach them all the same way. Nothing against stack and tilt or any, you know, certain types of, let's say, movement patterns that people, you know, put into a golfer into. Again, everybody is different. And so in that discovery and understanding how people are different, you know, and then how they move the club, move their body or whatever, you have to be so adaptive to that, you know. And again, we've all said it, there's no one way. And Homer Kelly said it, there's 13 trillion swings, pick one. You know, and so, you know, when you look at Bryson, that's what we did. We decided to build our own and do it our own way. And it was all in the golfing machine. We just wrote down what it was. Here's his 24 components. And he goes, okay, that's what I want to do. You know, and it was quite a bit different for obvious reasons. And everybody knows what that is. But, you know, again, he was able to do things that were completely out of the box. And so, again, it's so easy to put everybody in the same box and try to teach them the same things. And I think that's a detriment to athletes for sure.
Well, I don't know, when you say that everybody knows what that is about Bryson, what are those things for?
Well, certainly, you look at his hands are super high at address and the one plane, we never called it one plane. We called it zero shifting, but he certainly was trying to have his hands and club on one plane, throughout the whole golf swing. And, I always told him that the plane is the boss, and I still, for the most part, believe that. And so he felt, well, why should I have multiple planes to swing on? Why don't I just swing on one? Well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And so, that's the direction we did. And some of that was, your favorite Canadian Mo Norman. I mean, it was influenced by Mo, and I knew Mo in the 70s, and I had been following Mo since the early mid 70s. And so, and certainly knew what he was able to do. And turning Bryson onto that, it was like, okay, well, I want to do that. And, but I kept trying to tell him that, okay, you're watching a 70-year-old man swing a golf club. Yeah, I know, but I want to swing like him. And, and so we realized that wasn't necessarily going to work. But the hands on one plane, the club on one plane, and all that swinging in the same plane, that was doable. We just became more, Mo was much more of a lateral, or we thought more lateral, right, left. Whereas we went another direction and became way more rotational. And we found that, and again, we had body track. We saw movement patterns, and, and then what he felt is that, well, if I could keep everything stationary and rotate around one axis point, and he was able to rotate extremely fast with very fast hand and arm speed. And so, for him, it was like, his goal was always to make things simpler, never make it more complicated, even though he's a very complicated individual.
Well, I knew Mo for, I played golf with Mo as an amateur and later on as a professional when he wasn't so old. But Mo was never really a long hitter. He wasn't short by any means, but he wasn't long. But Bryson's a bomber. What did you do to? I was going to ask you about some of your other students, but you got Bryson right there, so I might as well ask. What did you do?
Well, what's fun with this is, he was doing speed training. So I always like showing people, what he does when he does speed training, and so it's quite entertaining for the most part.
All right, so I got to lay this out there because you and I have talked a lot by messaging and voice and stuff, and I appreciate your time you spent with me to share a lot of knowledge, and I appreciate it. But I have a personal belief that Bryson's the first long hitter that's going to play a long time because he's figured out how not to get hurt. Have you guys ever had any discussions on that?
Well, again, he's under supervision, so the biggest key is that he's under supervision with Greg Roscoff and muscle activation technique. And so, when Bryson just started doing this, I felt as long as Greg is on board and you guys, and he's watching what you're doing, and, so you don't get hurt, that's, that's all I care about. And the fact that he's healthy, and that's really important and important to Bryson, and certainly important to me. And, and that's the way it is. And Bryson's always been, not that I think he's a hypochondriac, but there are elements at times where he is, as I think all great athletes somehow are hypochondriacs. But, he's always very in tune to where if something's hurting or not firing correctly, he'll shut it down. He's always been pretty good about stuff like that. And, I don't think he's even been close to where he's been hurt. So, during the process, and his goal is to get to 150 for sure. So, and beyond, I'm sure.
To live to 150 years? I'm from Canada.
Well, that too. Yeah, that too. Yeah, that too, for sure.
So, okay, I got to ask you, it's a question. When I watch Bryson, and having worked in pressure mapping now for a decade, it seems to me that Bryson is one of the few long hitters on the planet that actually presses down towards the ball of his foot in and around, P5 very early. Well, I should say in and around P3, but he keeps it there all the way, and he's only got one touch point to, like, I don't think he really tries to clear. Does he really try to clear in a normal round? Does he really try to rotate his pose?
Yeah.
He does.
Yep. Yeah, only because I think it's relieves pressure. That's all. I think there's a concern there that if it gets locked in too much, that it might, he could hurt himself. So, plus he's thinking about torques. He likes the idea of torques, and he's torquing into the ground. He loves showing everybody how deep he digs into the ground. I mean, he takes videos of it. Hey, look at my torques. So again, it's it's funny going back in time. We always stressed the baseline. That was always the thing. We have in my view, whatever I'm doing, whether it's a wedge or driver, especially with one link clubs or irons, especially, it makes it easier. But to have a baseline that's transferable to driver to wedge. And so being that his club's same length, 60 degree to 3-iron, and then he had his 5-wood or 3-wood and 5-wood, 3-wood driver, and he used to have those basically the same length as well. As far as they were like 43 inches or 42 and a half or whatever. So we always had a baseline, and then when I, because he would screw around all the time, and he'd screw around going, hey, watch my long ball, he called it a crank ball, and he'd bump it up to, you'd go from 116 club head speed to 125, 124, no problem, just like that, and so it took a long time, and I tried to convince him that, hey, you need to incorporate that into when you're playing, when you're on a par 5 or short par 4, and you're, as accurate as he could do it, you got to bring it in play. It took a long time, probably 2 years. Finally, he did it right before the U.S. Amateur that he won, and it was fun, man. Watching, he'd be hitting it out there, just the 116, 295, whatever. Next thing you know, he's 40 yards by the guy that he's playing against, and you could see it on the guy's face. What just happened? And it was just a surprise. And and he nicknamed that the crank ball. So he always had it. It just, the problem was when he went on tour, he was not big enough or strong enough. He was only like 165 pounds, 170 maybe, and so he wasn't big enough and strong enough to be able to be stable enough to sustain it under extreme conditions, and try to control it. So it was fine to do it every once in a while, and again, his quest when he went on tour was immediately when he on tour, he wanted to hit it farther. I mean, day one, he wanted to hit it farther, and then we went from about 80% fairways hit to 40. That was not a good. He also missed 24 cuts in 2 years. Try that one. And so again, it had to go back to the baselines. Let's make sure you're making a living, and all that kind of stuff, and then try to build from there.
Do you we when we started using pressure mapping, we had to figure out how can you use it properly at the professional level, and we used to call it the vault, where you would record your traces and information when you're playing well. Do you ever do stuff like that with Bryson or any of your other players?
Yeah, I mean, I live on body track, so I just got done with a lesson, guy, older guy on body track, so fortunately I've been a part of what we would call, whether it's a balance board, a weight transfer board, whatever, for probably 30 years, and so obviously when body track came out, I was so excited because it was portable, and easy to move around, and so I think that again, for us, and I know this throws you guys off, it threw every body track, every guy that did traces, when I put them on Bryson, I go, hey, come watch what Bryson does, and the center of mass not moving, that threw everybody off. It's like, well, how can that be, right? I mean, we even had Quan told Bryson, you can't play golf that way, right? And that's what, I get, these are smart people. I'm not very smart, that's for sure.
I don't
and to be able for somebody like that to tell, at the time, by the way, Bryson had about a 70% chance of finishing in the top 5. Somebody did a statistic on him. He had a 70% chance of finishing the top 5 of any tournament he played in. And this guy's telling him, oh, you can't do that. You got to swing like Grant Waite. I mean, it's like, you're kidding me, right?
Okay,
No
so
offense to Grant, no offense to Grant Waite, you know, but what has he done? But, and so, you know, I think, again, we just tried to do it. My view has always been never say no. Let's try it. Let's see if it works. Right. And so, you know, obviously the direction we went with Bryson, his dad was pretty pissed when you start swinging that way. That's for sure. You know, and then it got worse when the same length clubs came into existence, and then it got worse with the bigger grips. You know.
Okay, so share with us. So, what have you taken in working with Bryson into your other players to help other players? Like, do they translate down, or is Bryson totally unique?
No, they translate. Yeah, no, I mean, I got them all over the chart. That's probably why I can't. People, you know, always, why don't you write a book or whatever? The problem is, for me, I can't say that everybody's so unique, and so I don't do all the same things with people. Do I love, being on, to me, being on body track, seeing correct traces, making sure that that it's nice and tight, and so on. I mean, I love, again, I grew up with a teacher who always taught from the ground up, so to me, it only made sense when you see a trace that, okay, what are you doing from the ground? What's going on, And so, again, I've had some players that are rotationally very fast, but have slow arm speed. And so if they have slow arm speed, they can't do what Bryson does. So there's going to have to be some shift right to left, and so on. And so that then they can go kind of from there. I've had some that have extremely fast arm speed, right? But their body just tends to want to shut down, and they get their arms trapped behind them and so on, and so their movement patterns are going to be potentially completely different as well. So it just, again, it's self-discovery to me. I wish there was a definitive answer. I really do. I think I got pigeonholed, or people put me in a box and said, you're the guy that teaches with the big grips and the one length clubs and the super upright and blah, 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 and if they would come watch me and I got a guy in front of me who's 6 degrees flat, with his clubs, I mean, it's like, really, so from a monetary standpoint, it's probably not a good thing. I probably should have just said, hey, everybody's same, same plane, one plane, here we go, and I can't, I'm too old for that.
I know Ryan's I know he's dying to dive in here. Ryan, jump in, baby. I know you want to ask.
So, we're so enamored as a golf public with, the swings of the past, right? Everyone will dredge up Hogan or Nelson or, all these old swings. Do you think the ball has changed a lot of the dynamics about how we want to swing and present the club?
Well, sure. I mean, at least you almost have a round ball now. So, but by the way, we've proven that it's not. But back again, a Bellata golf ball, I mean, that ball wasn't even round. And then if you actually were stupid enough to play a McGregor ball, that was lopsided, and so, so I think that, yeah, sure. I mean, again, the ball did so many different things off the clubs we played. I mean, it just, and so I think you had to be, I will say this. I think, and being that Bryson kind of brought this up recently, that he has a very firm grip, which I totally believe in. I've always believed that for the most part. I was not, at least for the last 20 years, when people would say, oh, hold the bird, and I'd go, yeah, kill the bird. That was my goal. Kill that freaking bird as quickly as possible and hold on to it and crush it. Because golf is in my mind, it's a force that you're trying to apply. And I don't know of very many people, when they're trying to apply a force at a very high velocity, that they're barely trying to hold on to the club and trying to be loose. I just don't believe that exists. Whereas in Hogan's day, potentially, in Sam Snead's day, and maybe a little bit later, you almost had to do that because of flex patterns in the club. Yeah. The way clubs were made, the way the ball kind of flied, or was flying, you had to kind of be this kind of manipulative, with your hands a little bit. And the fact that your clubs were not fit, the fact that your clubs were maybe toe down or whatever, you had a lot of problems. And so there was tons of manipulation. Whereas in today's world, there's not.
I got to ask you a question, because you started off with the fit part, and that's right up my wheelhouse going into my new career, which is my old career, building shafts. How do you fit somebody for an equal length club?
Well, it's still about club head speed, first of all, right? And so, again, let's say a good player, so 90 miles an hour. So if you've got a 90 miles an hour 7-iron swing speed, you 4-iron, 3-iron through lob wedge, it's a fairly easy fit because you can get the 4-iron up in the air and you can do all the things you're supposed to do. It's still the same process in respect to that shafts matter, right? In performance matters. So, but people have a misconception though that one length clubs, that the club head, all they are is just the shafts are just cut. They don't understand how the heads are weighed. And so when Bryson and I were going through that process of one length or same length, whatever you want to call them, obviously Cobra, it's one length. And so we had to discover what was the gram weight of the head that we were going to settle on that was going to be 3-iron all the way through the lob wedge. And we settled originally on about 282, 280 on the gram weight. I still believe, by the way, that that's the best weight. However, most of the companies have gone a lot lighter because it's easier to swing it faster. So, but there's a whole nother part of that equation that's another conversation. So to me, I'm still fit. The cool part about one length fitting though, is that like for me, I fit a 5-iron, a 7-iron, and a 9-iron. Well, there is no other fitting system that's that thorough. Most of the, when you go to any shop and most places, unless you're going to somebody that, let's say you go to, well, shoot, I've been to the Kingdom and it's still just typically a 6-iron or a 7-iron. And so I fit a 5-iron, a 7-iron, and a 9-iron. I have a 5-iron shaft, right? And a 7-iron shaft. So those are different deflection points that are in the 5-iron, in the 7-iron, in the 9-iron. And I'm able to have my student or customer hit each of those 3 irons, and we can see flights, carry distance, spin rates, and so on. And it's so close to their set makeup, and the experience is beyond anything they've ever had. That's why 90% of our fits go one length for sure.
So how much? What percentage?
90%.
I love it, because we are building a single length iron shaft for 2022 with the swing balance stuff. Not to give it a plug, but I'm going to be talking about that later on. And Jeff Palmer, we got Jeff Hughes in from the UK. Jeff, Richard, I'm going to invite you to unmic yourself there. And if you want to ask Coach a question, you're more than welcome. Rich is staying up late. He owns a teaching facility and I forgot the name of the community in the Midlands. But anyways, Rich is a really good teacher, and everybody here is. But if you want to turn your mic on.
The other thing here's another thing that's interesting. Hey Jeff, what's up?
Richard.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. He used to be a body track guy. Now he's a gas dual plate system guy, but he's still got body track. And Richard's, he talks about the horizontal plane and frontal torque and all that. That's fine. That's great. And Rich, you got any questions you want to ask Mike? Well, thanks for staying up this late.
Yeah. Would love to. Mike, how's the work, or how's the swing changed with Bryson from many years ago to now with what he's doing with his speed stuff? How's the work changed, or how's the swing changed?
Well, all he cares about is hitting it far. So when you're, I think he said it best the other day, if you could really drive it far and fairly well and accurate and putt really good, everything in between really doesn't matter that much. Right. So, I just look at, I always relate it to the fact that, because it's about hitting it far. It's a whole new frontier for him, and it's fun and exciting. And so, it's that's all he works on. So obviously his movement patterns are different. His verticals are different. I think it's really, I think one of the big things, I mean, there's a million different directions I can go with this conversation, but obviously his radial deviation, how he loads the club, how he transitions is much different. My fear all the time is how that's going to translate to his iron play. And so, I've got some videos of his swing, and you can certainly see his loading pattern is a little bit different than what it used to be. And it's, and it's, again, because he spends so much time trying to gain distance, of course it's going to seep into other parts of his game. That's just the way it is, especially if he's not working at it, which I've asked him a number of times. So are you going to work on your scoring clubs at all? No, not for a while. So, you got to appreciate, I always appreciate his honesty. I mean, he said, it's fine. It's okay where it is right now. I want to keep going down this direction. And again,
Mike, you mentioned, you mentioned there, things like radial deviation on the backswing. How much is that conscious, and how much of that is just a consequence of other things such as his ground reaction on the backswing? So how much is he consciously changing the radial, or how much is that kind of unconscious?
Right. There's certainly there's so much speed and force in the backswing. When you're talking about your wrists being actually a very weak joint, weak muscle, whatever in that area, I think it's definitely a consequence of the things that he's doing. I'm sure when he saw it, he goes, yeah, it's just going to happen. It's just the way it is. And so, I think that it's so many different aspects of the golf swing that he's trying to change. Again, what's so funny to me, or what's interesting, when let's say 2 years ago at 196, 200, he thought, man, that's it, right? 200 miles an hour ball speed, right? I mean, he's so far beyond that now. And again, if he can get to 150 club head speed, what's that going to be? 240 ball speed, 235, 230. I mean, that's cranking. And so on. And then when he was here in last December, he was hitting 8 irons, 210. So I didn't see the point, but I was like, you do have to still hit club shots that are 150 and all that. So
what does he do now that you mentioned that? What does he do from 100, from 120 and in? Is it
again, he set up a clock system early on when we were in high school, early days of college, definitely high school. And so clock system all the way from 6:45 to 11:30. And he did that with every club, 60 degree, all the way to a 3-iron. So he has a specific number at 9:45, right, on his golf swing. He has a specific, let's say with his 50 degree, he would have a specific number, the ball would go that distance. So he set up a system that was foolproof, a system that he can default to and not even have to practice that much anymore and still do it fairly well. The only thing that he misses now is that his acceleration rates have changed quite a bit. And so that's where his struggle tends to be. Can he do a 9:45 or a 9:30 swing? 100%. I watch him, done it millions of times. I think I could probably almost say a million times. And so when your system is set up like he set it up, it makes it very easy. He does his yardage. It's a 125 yard shot. It's my 50 degree at 8:45, and there you go. And that's what he does. And if his acceleration rates are right on, look out. I mean, I hate to tell you, he's a guy that I don't know if he can beat him.
Define acceleration rate for.
So we spent a lot of time on flight scope and understanding acceleration rates, not how. I just relate it this way. It's how you press on the accelerator. That's all. And so obviously with the long drive, he's pressing on that accelerator pretty hard. And so where he was very conscientious about how he accelerated all his clubs across the line. Whereas now, because he's working so hard and hitting it farther and farther and farther, he doesn't spend a lot of time on his acceleration rates for his iron, is what I would call his scoring clubs.
So we have a fellow named Michael Cunningham, AKA Doc Blades, on the line here, and he was, him and I shared a lot of similar background. Be it he used to grab clubs out of the free barrel so that he could play golf. I used to grab clubs out of the free barrel so that my dad wouldn't know I broke them. But Doc became a very much field player and could really accommodate, like you said early on, to any club. How do you get a guy like Doc to use the acceleration to get more brake power, or whatever the terminology?
Again, I mean, the first thing that we measured, we would in fitting, we never really chose a shaft unless we would look at the acceleration profile in flight scope, and we would see either a super loop up, which means the shaft was super kicking, or it was looped down and then it was actually decelerating as it was working into impact. And so what we were trying to find is a certain type of loop to where the club was, like I said, it wasn't extremely kicking, but it was kicking through impact. And so, I was a big believer in tipping shafts. So I was always tipping it to try to change that acceleration profile quite a bit. And then, drove when we turned pro and the club guys were around me, they hated me because I was always tipping crap. So it was important. You can do it obviously through equipment, obviously different shafts, different deflections and torques and so on. Or you can certainly do it through how you control hand speed. And so those were things that, Bryson worked on quite a bit.
Now, it's a question because I have a theory, which I think gets shot down here momentarily. But I believe that the modern golfer is generating a lot more power by effectively lining up the joints from the ankle up to the lead shoulder towards impact, and not getting their head so far behind and keeping the center of mass more forward at impact. What's your thoughts there, Mike?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, so just for fun. So back when the stack and tilt and one plane, two plane stuff came out, I felt left out. So I came up with a Mike Schy. So we called it MS1, MS2, MS3. And so you could, by the way, you could ask Bryson every once in a while, are you an MS1, MS2? He'll probably tell you, I'm an MS1. But anyway, and so I based it around the left hip joint, the center, and the right hip joint. And so that's why when we started experimenting about, okay, well, let's just focus on the left hip joint, and then having body track and being able to say, okay, let's center the mass around that. Now, how does the body, if I'm not going to move it, what has to happen? Right. And so I think based on what you're saying and the joints lining up, it's very conducive to that. If you have good arm speed and you're very rotational, you can generate a lot of speed doing that. It's really pretty amazing. So a lot of guys would misconstrue what we were doing, thinking we were center pivot, which we were never, ever center pivot. Now I might start in the center, but I'm always moving to my left hip joint, right?
That's right.
And so, and then aligning everything from there. And so again, we struggled with back injuries, things like that. So I want as vertical for me personally. It was the only way I could actually play golf, was trying to be as vertical and straight as possible.
Right.
Any side bends or anything that was crazy, it just in weird tilts or extensions, I wasn't walking the next day. So those were things as well that I always felt body track was so helpful in understanding.
Hey, Mike, I got a question for you. One thing that I noticed between you talk about the modern swing and the older swing equipment, you really focus on that. But one thing that I've noticed, when you look at like a Johnny Miller, a Seve, them guys had a lot of hip rotation, a lot of slide toward the target side. Okay. And I think that was okay until they reached a certain age, because it brought in so much rhythm, tempo, and timing as they got older. That's why I don't think those guys did good on that senior level tour, because of the rhythm, tempo, and timing that it took, right? So I think that's one thing that's with the modern swing that we're not seeing no more, which is good. We're not seeing that heavy slide toward that target side no more. you know, and I think that along with the equipment like you're talking about, but I think that heavy slide we saw with the head leaning way backwards, I think that was, you know, back in the day was a good swing. But I want to know if you think equipment changed that heavy slide that was going to that target side, or it was just a more vertical upright swing and a change in the thinking of teaching.
No, if I were gonna label it, let's say number one, it's the fact that guys are so much stronger, bigger. I mean, think about back then, most guys were alcoholic smokers, you know, overweight, you know, I mean, you think about back then, it's like a workout. What does that mean? I remember when Gary Player, I mean, he was the first guy to start working out. Everybody's like, what is that crazy little guy doing?
Right.
You know? And so I think the athleticism is the biggest change. And what was able to happen, I believe, and everybody's gonna hate me because, and I love throwing this out there. The reason those guys are so good on tour now is they are the best steerer of the golf ball on the planet. They have what I call offensive steering mechanisms that are spot on, whereas most golfers have defensive steering mechanisms. And so, and I even proposed that to Bryson one day, is 2 years ago maybe. I said, hey, thanks for proving my theory. You know, of course, he always looks at me with that look, what are you talking about? And I said, I think you guys are the best steers of the golf balls on the planet. And he looked at me and goes, you're 100% right. And the reason I came up with that conclusion was that all I ever heard on the driving range on tour is minimize closure, right? Minimize closure, right? The rotation of the club. So if you can start minimizing that, right, which is why you see most guys are hard left or righters now as well. And then, the guy that has the best or slowest closure rate of anybody on tour is Dustin Johnson.
Yeah, DJ, definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the athleticism was the first part, because they could move the club extremely fast, but yet got rid of a lot of variables that were reliant on timing. So I'm a big believer that I want to get rid of that. I know there is an element of timing. I understand it, blah, blah, blah. But if I'm relying on timing under stress, that is going to fail.
Absolutely.
Period. End of story.
Would you, Mike, two questions all in one. When you say steerer, I have a philosophy that the guy with the best vision can get the ball to the target more precisely, because their body will find a way to get there. You know, subconsciously steering, unconscious. You know, but would you A, agree to that, or modify that in some way, and also B, would you agree that the game is more of a hitting game than a swing game today?
Yes, absolutely. It's definitely more of a hitting game.
So do guys? Sure. Like when the 60-degree wedge came out, and I don't know really, I can't remember that point in time, but in the 80s, I found that as a guy that, you know, I did play a little golf or tried, I found that to be a tough club to get used to. But then I watched the younger guys doing it, and they just hit the shit out of it, right. You know, and they control it. Is it easier to control a full out swing than sort of an easy shot?
I'm going to give you the Homer Kelly response on that one. I think it all depends for sure. And so I think, I remember I asked Bill Glasson once, I say, hey, Bill, why don't you have a 60 degree? He goes, I do. He got his 56 and he goes, look, 57, 58, 59, 60, right? That was his response, right? He'd only won 7 times on tour. So I thought, oh, okay, that sounds good to me. Right?
Ryan, I know you got questions, man. You're holding it back, baby.
You know, you've talked about a lot of these modern things, and we talked a little bit about wrist angles. I noticed, you know, Bryson plays with a lot of ulnar deviation in his swing. Is it something that's conscious to try to minimize the amount of radial, or is it at certain position?
Right. Did you kill Terry?
I did. I try every day.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. So I'm again, Steve Stricker. Bryson used to it was always fun because we used to try to practice close to Steve Stricker somehow. So it was fun because Bryson would even say he's the closest one to what I'm trying to do, what he would say, just he was flatter. and so on. And so we knew that the secondary lever system, which is, let's say, wrist cock or radial deviation, that if we could minimize that and well, think about it, if I can only use one lever, that would be more accurate than having two levers, right? And so, again, my view is always make the circle. I'm always one who believes be the outside horse on the merry-go-round, right? The wider the circle, the faster it goes, right? And so trying to create angles and lots of different deviations, again, under stress, unfortunately, we are not robots. And so if I'm relying on timing, on cocking of the wrists that are, ginormously, let's say at radial maxed out end range, radial deviation,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to time up something and square it up at the same time, oh my gosh, that becomes defensive steering. Good luck under pressure,
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons why, in our view and what I've seen on, and again, all I ever heard out there was closure rate, minimize it.
I got a question for you, Coach Mike. We have a friend here, Matthew Mills, that just became a golf professional. He joined. He's part of the Canadian Infantry, and thank you for service. But he's now in the throes of taking all these courses and stuff that were predicated on old teaching methods and all that. And I was telling him the other day, I said, one of the best things you can do is go pay a few $100 and get a lesson off gentlemen like yourself, and try to learn from masters like yourself and incorporate it into your own game, and then make your own type of philosophy out of all that. Now, what say you guys on that? What open comments?
Well, again, I'm a golfing machiner, so there's 13 trillion of them. There you go. And again, that's a really bad misunderstanding of the golfing machine, and that people don't understand. To me, it Bryson and I always felt it was simple, right? Here's the 24 components. You start understanding the variations within that. It was easy to put something together that maybe is unique or different, and so, like I said, everybody's different. It is fun listening to other teachers teach and how they coach and all that. And I found it very interesting being on tour, listening to what guys are saying out there as well. I mean, those were the best quote of the best. And so, all the way, whether it was Butch out there talking or somebody like a Sean Foley or guys that you wouldn't even know, I found the most fascinating instructor was Jim Furyk's dad.
Really?
I mean, yeah, he's like an idol to me. And, I asked him one day, I said, so why, I'm sure everybody told you Jim's swing won't work. And he looked at me and I said, what was the key that said, okay, I think it'll work. Let's figure out why it works and how to keep it going. And he said, he told me his solution was quite simple. He said, my mom taught me about common sense when I was very young. And he said, it was just common sense to leave it.
Well, I mean, it seems to me the times that I've spent out there is that the best players don't complicate things very much. I mean,
Sure.
they got a result they're looking for, and that's it. Now I got a question. When you're working with Bryson, do you work on more than one thing at a time, or how do you do this? Do you do it?
No, nobody works with Bryson. Bryson works on himself.
Okay, I gotta ask it for entertainment value.
Well, I mean that regardless of where we are in our relationship or whatever. Obviously, we've he's been around me forever, and we're very close and family and all that. My whole motivation, and I do this with all my players, is that I don't want them to be reliant on me.
Wow.
And so Bryson early on, especially understanding the golf machine, understanding, if I didn't have an answer, I would call guys like you and say, hey, Terry, I don't understand this. And, or I'd send Bryson to somebody like you. And if I did, whether it was a putting, I think putting is the greatest example. We were in a quandary, we went from, the face on thing that the USGA didn't want him to do. And we won't talk about that. But anyway, and so okay, what do I do? And so I'd met Steve Harrison and the SICK guys. And I said, I love their face technology. And I said, you know what? Why don't you let's go spend 3 or 4 days with those guys. You'll build your own putter, do your own thing. You own it. It'll all be good. I mean, again, to me, this isn't about me. It was never about me. It was about him. And so if I don't have the answer, I got to get him to the right people to give him the answer, you know? And so I felt very fortunate that I've known and met guys like you, Terry, and developed great relationships that was very easy for me to say, Bryson, call Terry if you have a question about your trace, you know, and he would do it. And so I didn't, and if, you know, and I know a lot of teachers, they wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
know?
no.
And so that's the way I did it. And again, you know, when I was out on the range with him and, you know, and he'd look at me, he goes, tell me something. And I go, hell no, you figure it out yourself. You know, he couple of mother F's or whatever, and you know, in that time, but in the end, he'd dig it out and he'd figure it out and he'd own it. And in the end, how he ends up owning it is so much better than whether it's me or anybody else, you know, telling him, here's the answer. Okay, I'm just going to do it. He's never been like that. You could tell him the right thing and he'll look at you and go, you are crazy. And then he goes through this whole loop of discovery, right? And he might not ever tell you that, yeah, you were right, you know, maybe every once in a while, you know, but that's how he did things. And that's how he'll tell you he used to tell us to people all the time, it's Mike's fault I'm the way I am, you know, so. I always found that comment interesting.
Right, you're dying. Go at it, man. Have fun.
So you get a student that comes up that's, you know, your average run-of-the-mill man, woman, doesn't matter. You know, they're not athletically Bryson, right? They're not going to play any sport for a living. How do you help them go down through that self-discovery without the millions of practice balls?
Well, that's a great question.
Well, they still got to hit millions of practice balls.
That's a great answer. Okay, so do you think, but Mike, the top guys today, do they hit as many balls as they did like in the 60s and 70s?
I think some, sure. I think some. You know, again, it depends on the individual, where they're at in their game and so on. I think you can overdo it for sure. I think you work yourself into a funk. You know, certainly Bryson's really good at that. He'll work himself into a funk and then 5 hours later work himself out of it. So I think the average player, again, if you just, first of all, people learn golf incorrectly. They go back, it's like they pay this green fee and it's like a smorgasbord or a buffet. They got to eat all the food and they're playing at distances that are too far and too long. They're missing the idea of what the game is all about. And it's about beating par. And so what I try to do with all my students, especially the, you know, newer golfers or day-to-day golfer, is that I want you to play from a distance that you can make par.
Love that.
On the hole. Now, guess what? A lot of people 3 and 4 putt. Guess where they're starting from?
The green.
Yeah, you know, and so once they learn that, they learn faster. But again, I pay a green fee. Guess what I got to do? I got to go play it back at the blue tees, and I got to go shoot 115. You know, and they go home pissed off, right? And so on. It's this progressive. And then they establish their comfort zone so high that it's just almost impossible to break.
Hey, Mike, do you think we are at a point now where there's too much information for players, where we talked about this in the last Zoom meeting, where players know all their numbers and you can fit them and you can have them hitting the ball 20 yards longer, but it doesn't fit into their numbers? And they kind of get in their own way. Do you think are we at that point now where the little orange box has created where everybody knows their number, but the difference between golf swing and playing golf is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, here's a good one for you. So what I do with a lot of my really good players is that they have a horrible spatial awareness.
There you go.
So old school, when I was in, obviously no Lodge Modder, right? Balata ball, Persimmon Woods, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Right. So, and a Tommy Armour Iron Master putter that was 1945. So, but what I did, I would hit balls and I would, let's say, hit it out 50 yards and I would go walk out there and see where my balls ended up and I would pick them up. So what ends up happening is you end up having a spatial awareness.
Yeah.
That with TrackMan or FlightScope or any of the other things, you're relying on these numbers all the time. And when you get into an environment and you're looking at something and you don't have the spatial awareness, I don't care how accurate numbers are that you've hit every number spot on. If you don't have spatial awareness, and it doesn't matter what number, you know, you're going to have difficulty. And so I try to get my guys to go out and literally walk out those distances all the way to 120, 130, 150. So they start seeing or getting that spatial awareness from where they are and where they're trying to hit it to. Very old school, but I think it's the best things they can do.
Ryan, how do I know how much time we got? Because we started a couple minutes early. What do we?
You have about 6 minutes left, sir.
Oh, that's awesome. Mike, this is unbelievable. I mean, I've done a lot of these and I'm having more fun on this one than I've had anywhere. I got a KK, you know, you've been a good friend of mine all these years. I'm gonna let you ask Mike something because I know you want to ask something about your technique. Go ahead.
Well, she knows more than I do. I can guarantee you that.
No, I tell you, go ahead.
No, I loved everything you've said, Mike. My only question is, when can I come and meet you? We both live in California.
Anytime. What are you doing? I cannot believe you haven't come here yet.
I can't either,
I'm
actually.
waiting to be invited. I'm coming tomorrow morning. I'll leave at 6 a.m.
All right, there you go. Now she'll be there. That's the problem with that.
I know.
It's all good. I'll be there.
And Palmer's down in Florida driving his car, showing us the palm trees. I can't believe it. But Mike, I want to ask you a question. That is, you know, how do you help? How does the stuff that you're doing with Bryson translate down and dummy it down for the average old guy like me? How can I learn from Bryson and all the stuff that you've done?
Again, everybody forgets. If he's not the putter he is today, he ain't doing what he's doing on the long drive stuff. I can tell you that right now. He's top 10 best putters in the world. He might be the best putter in the world right now. And so you have to everybody again, it's not about dumbing it down. Yeah, you want to go try to hit it 10 yards farther. It means nothing. It means nothing. If you want to hit it 15 yards farther, it still means nothing. If your goal is I'm going to hit it farther, it has to be 30 or more. Then it might mean a little.
Right.
But then again, decisions have consequences, right? Choices have consequences. All right. Well, that just messed up your wedge game. You see, I told Bryson this in the beginning. I said, yeah, your strokes gain number on driving will go up, but overall, potentially it might go down. He goes, what are you talking about? You're going to be hitting it into your weakest zone now.
Right.
You better be practicing that. And by the way, I see it all the time. His driving number minus on his strokes gain, you know, on his scoring club. It drives me insane. Right. But he's such a great putter he's such a great putter. It's ridiculous.
Does he spend as much?
What's that?
Does he spend as much time practicing putting as he does with his
Yes,
driving?
I mean he as much everything he's doing in driving right now, he did that times 10 getting to be where he is at putting.
That's unbelievable.
No, and nobody knows that.
Well, now we do. Ryan, hammer to you. We're just about out of time.
So you got that big tent out there, right? So you finally got a covered range and everything else. But you got a body truck. I want to know what you think about balance, overall balance that people have and how that translates into their ability to swing the golf club.
So real simple. My term is I try to get rid of the word balance and I do stability and structure. So to me, if I'm building a house, it better be stable and it better be structurally sound. And so everything I do is about being stable and being structurally sound. End
story. That's the
Coach,
this has been the most entertaining Zoom I've ever done, and I mean it. And I
appreciate it.
Respect to everybody. I want to thank you for this, and I want to thank you for sharing with everybody. This is crazy. Any closing thoughts, Coach? Because we only got about a minute and a half left here.
Well, can I
fairways and greens, baby.
Huh?
Quick question.
Fairways and greens.
Who's asking the question? Fairways and greens. Is that you, Palmer?
Yeah, this is me. Bouncing around Florida. So, Mike, we know his COP stays centered. As far as heel toe, how drastic is his heel toe?
Super drastic. Absolutely. Big time.
Okay. Enlighten us in the last 60 seconds here. Tell us what he does.
Well, again, not that he does it as much anymore, but again, when he was keeping his COP over his left hip joint, Yeah, he had huge pressure into his right heel. It's the only way it works.
Exactly.
I've always believed in maxing out hip rotation. That was always my belief. I thought it was easier on the back. I was not an X factor guy. I was not, minimize the hip rotation and torque the upper body. That to me was just going to create, injury. And so we always believed in maxing out hip rotation. And in order to do that, your pressure better be big time in the right heel and the backswing.
Absolutely. Coach Mike Schy, Ryan Groves, General Manager of Biotech. Guys, this has been unbelievable. Mike, I can't thank you enough, sir.
Anytime.
You guys have a great day.
Thanks, man.
Cheers out. Mike, that's unbelievable. You got more energy than my son. We're coming down to see him as soon as we can.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That would be fun. That would be a lot of fun.
Well,
make sure Karen does it. I mean, that would be really fun. We could coordinate it. That would be easy.
Well, she's gonna come. I'll bet you she's in her car at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, we'll get Palmer. We'll get Jeff to come up too. I think it'd be good.
That would be fantastic. Thank you. See you, Coach.
You bet. Take care.
Bye.